Hey guys, this will be video one for a new series I'm going to do, and probably will title it "How to Replace the Neck on a." I may just title it "How to Replace the Neck on a Vintage Gibson Les Paul," or I may title it "How to Replace the Neck on a 1973 Gibson Les Paul Goldtop," and do a bit of an unveiling here. I received this guitar about maybe 4 or 5 days ago, so hadn't had a chance to really do this video series, but I have communicated with the client enough that we're definitely on the same page as to what I'm going to cover in the restoration or the neck replacement, but also what I'm going to be covering in the video series. And I'm gonna do everything I can to just keep this particular video series isolated specifically to this guitar, but I'm in uncharted territories here where I have actually two vintage Les Paul restorations going on at the same time, alongside a '69 Gibson SG restoration as well. So sometimes I may just say, hey, if you go to video, let me back up. Very rarely, very rarely will I say, hey, if you go to video 2 or video 5 or video 7 or the 35-minute mark, if it's important, then you can see how I do something. If it's important enough to discuss in the video, then I will repeat it in this actual video series and not send you off on a rabbit trail as to, how to do this right here. We'll do every bit of this right here, but it'll be a little bit smaller headstock, and it will have a little bit bigger tenon as well in order to fit into the body. This is the '69 SG, so that I'm doing for Eric, and both of you guys are from Massachusetts, so pretty cool. But nonetheless, the interesting thing about this guitar, and Jerome, I appreciate you trusting me with your project. But Jerome's guitar at one point in the past had an actual neck replacement, but the neck replacement did a really good job. But it's not. And let me just do this. Let me get this. Let me get this case off the table, so there's no catastrophe right there on the front end. It's like a hot pink supermodel, man. And then we'll start talking about what's in front of us and the direction we're going to follow in order to get it under control. Always use like a little wildcat fur or something like that. There's no sense in introducing any more vintage to it. Okay, so what we got in front of us is a 1973 Les Paul Goldtop. Has P90s, actual P90s in it, and I did a little bit of research, and I'm not completely convinced that those are original, but I'm not convinced that they're not. I thought they only had the P90s or the mini humbuckers in the P90 location, and I have not removed the cover at all. I have had this guitar out of the case, and I played it for about 20 or 30 minutes when I first got it, just to kind of get a feel for intonation and things like that, as to whether this fretboard has any value to it, or might it be what I call a beautiful disaster. And beautiful disasters are just that. They look really awesome and everything's really incredible about them until you discover that the scale is inaccurate and you can't get proper intonation. So if that be the case, that doesn't mean that you would just, destroy this fretboard when you're removing it, or that you would destroy this lower when you're removing it. When I talk about fretboard, the fretboard is a fretboard. When I talk about the lower, I'm talking about that's the lower. So when you're getting ready to remove this fretboard and lower, you have to make the determination of, well, what should take precedence in the restoration. Well, I can go straight to the finish line on that and tell you what should take precedence 100% is anything that's going on to the left side of that line right there is what takes precedence, okay? And what takes precedence on this side? Anything that is going on the left side of that location right there. We're not going to do any damage to the body in order to try to baby off that neck. But I'm not saying that in preparation that I'm getting ready to saw this thing off. That's not what I'm talking about. But you just have to prioritize your job and know that what it is that you're doing. And I'll go ahead and present this just ever so briefly, but I don't want to spend time talking about it. When they did replace this neck, this heel was too tall. They brought that heel down too far, so it forced me when I started doing my initial rough out for the new neck, I had to go considerably taller in my heel in the event I got this neck off, only to discover that somebody drilled a bunch of holes in there, and now I'm having to try to cover something. So that's what this series is going to entail. We're going to have a lot of discoveries, and then we're going to be making decisions based on what's in front of us with respect to just the body. Okay. But also attempting to not lose this neck if we can. If there's some way that we can salvage this neck for a future use, then so be it. It's got the beautiful old Grover. And I had made the statement to Jerome, it's like, I'm not all that crazy about the Grovers, that design Grover. But as soon as I pulled out of the case, it's like, oh wow, those look really nice. So I'll shoot straight with you, Jerome. Those are really awesome, and that would have been period correct for a replacement tuner on this guitar. But if you want to go with the Clusons, man, or Clusons, however they pronounce it, we definitely can do that, and we just can. So truss rod cover looks to be original. That's awesome. The Gibson mother of pearl logo looks to be original based on the size of the N, the right side of the letter N. That looks to be historically accurate. So I say that to say this, I'm not there yet, but there is a possibility that I could just remove this overlay and repurpose it on the new lower. But if you prefer me to do all new pearl work and whatnot, that is original. It would be a wash either way. It would be very labor intensive to remove this and make certain that I don't screw anything up. But it would keep it historically accurate. If the luthier that did the neck replacement removed this lower, this overlay from the actual guitar, then I would say that would be period correct, and it would obviously be probably a little bit more. It would increase the value slightly, and it definitely looks. It doesn't look to be bangered at all. All these dimensions look to be really true. It's got and you know this, Jerome. This is your guitar, so I say that to say this. But it would be at the expense of possibly losing the lower, according to how I was able to remove it. I might be able to remove it with a hot knife, but a very gentle hot knife, because this looks to be some sort of, it's not, it doesn't look to be a fiberboard. It looks more like a plastic type material. So this is something I'd have to be really careful with removing. Okay, so in other words, what I'm saying, I've never removed a 1973 Les Paul Goldtop overlay, so we'll have to proceed with caution there. Or either Jerome might just say, no, man, let's just leave it intact, and I want the new mother of pearl and the new overlay, even if we do a little bit of relicing and stuff like that. Okay, so I'll continue doing a little bit of a flyby. I have not removed these covers, and I'm not just saying that for the video series. Have not removed any of these covers. The only thing I have done is I removed this P90 in order to do an assessment on the actual the tenon length, where the tenon would be landing, and to just assure that when I'm roughing out these two lowers over here for these two Les Paul projects, that I didn't open this up only to find the surprise that somebody had machined this for a very long tenon that went all the way back to this location right here. But so I did remove that pickup to determine that it has the historical depth, and that's roughly exactly where it would be ending right there. I'm talking about the tenon up under the pickup. So that gave me comfort to go ahead and build these two necks in tandem as far as the layout, the rough out, the actual machine work and everything. And that's what I mentioned to Jerome's like, man, this is working out so well because how often do you have two early 70s Les Paul Goldtops in your shop at the same time getting basically the virtually identical work done. And not only that, but you actually have a large billet of 5A flamed Honduran mahogany that is about as rare as it comes, where you're able to cut two Les Paul replacement necks out of that one large board, and one goes to Massachusetts and the other one goes to North Carolina. So anyway, but when I was preparing to pull the trigger on these locations right here and this rough out, I had to make that determination first. And as I mentioned, it's not something where I almost got in trouble, but I will say this: if you're like working from the Stuart McDonald templates, and you just blindly machined this neck for a client and then you shipped it to them, but what they really needed was a neck that was that went down far enough to cover up some banjo work down there, then you did a disservice to your client because you didn't take the time to assess that really they need a pretty massive heel. And I hope that's not the case because I want to get that historically under control. It really should be about in this location right here. That's about where it should stop. So right now it's about 3/16. It's at least 1/8 of an inch too tall. And I've already covered that, so I won't cover that again. But we'll get there and we'll make the determination as to what we need to do when we're there. I always make the statement, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Don't, I'm not saying don't ask me a question, but if you ask me a question and I answer it with, well, I'm not there yet, it only means that it's not important at this moment. But when we are at that moment, then yes, I will address it with the importance of whatever we're working with at this moment in time. So let's do this. Let's remove this cover off the control cavities just out of curiosity, and then I'll immediately put it back together. And you might think, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it just depends on if I get this control cavity open and I realize it's like 100% historically accurate, then I'll continue to be making the thoughts of how do I'm going to set that right there for right now. That's not something I would normally do, but I'm even going to do it per location. If I'm getting ready to restore a guitar, I've already got a little box prepared. This one looks, that one looks vintage, correct? It's a little bit smaller. This one's inaccurate. So Jerome, if you want, I could put the accurate size in there. These two, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those two are accurate and this one's just too small. I think that might be what's going on. I think these three right here that I'm pulling out are vintage, correct? Very nice, very clean work. So I'm not going to touch anything in there, obviously, but I just want to get a visual. Okay, let's put that back together. So it doesn't appear to be original. For the most part, that's kind of irrelevant. And even the client might be thinking, what the hell does that have to do with my replaced neck? It's just I'm kind of nosy when I've got something like this in front of me, and I kind of want to see what might be under the cover. So, and it's not part of the job for me to do any like electronics testing or anything like that. That's definitely not original. That's a round head. But one thing I would do, but this cover right here is chipped pretty bad on the top two corners there. See, that looks to be more historically accurate. That's a number 3. If I had some brown plastic, I would repair that for you. But let's say that was cracked. Well, that's awesome that they got that shield on the back. That kind of helps hold it together. But if it were cracked a little bit, I might put a little bit of Jack glue in there or CA glue just to make certain that it doesn't crack worse and get lost. Okay, it has a short toggle 3-way. See how it feels. Feels nice. It's very smooth. And it definitely looks vintage. So there's a very strong possibility. And please understand, I'm kind of learning as I'm restoring these 2 guitars because these are the first 2 vintage Les Pauls or 70s Les Pauls that I've ever seen open. Okay, very interesting. Beautiful work. Very clean. Okay, so let's put it back. It's proud right there. And then I'll finish the video talking about order of operations as far as removing this neck and such. I probably will just go ahead and remove the P90 as well, since we're being nosy and checking out the project, but also it'll give us an indication of what's going on under the P90 cover. Little support here. See what that looks like on camera. That's really weird. My camera storage looks like it's running low, so let me check that again. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking differently. I've always had problems with this camera shutting down in the middle of a video. Let me double check that, triple check that. 18 minutes, 13, 14 seconds. I thought it was shutting down. It was a timer down. I thought it was going to cut off in 17 minutes. You're going to take tension off of it. Take the tension off the high first. And I typically would not do this until I relieve all the pressure off the truss rod. I'm going to have to put my foot on this stool. It may shake the camera a little bit. I'll try to just not move. And at this point, yeah, I think I probably will just go ahead and remove the strings completely. I should title this video how not to do a video restoring a 1973 Les Paul Goldtop. But if you were going to work on a guitar and remove the strings completely like this, I would consider strongly verifying the truss rod. If the truss rod is under a massive amount of back tension on a particular guitar, then what would happen if there's a ton of back tension on that neck in order to hold it where it's at, and then you remove all these strings, well, now the opposing tension from the strings is now completely relieved, and it ends up being about around 90 to 110 pounds pressure per string, and that's enormous. Now, it's not a straight pull, it is a linear pull, but when you remove all the pressure tension from the strings like that, now the truss rod has been given the permission to just pull at its maximum level or at its maximum pull. And it very well could break the truss rod, or it could strip a thread a little bit, or worse, it could twist the neck a little bit. So I'm not going to say it's irrelevant with this guitar because, you know, we are replacing the neck. And, you know, like I said, it's not that this neck is of no value, but I typically always have a small magnet on the table. And that, therefore, the magnet will hold that in place. Let me see if I can find a magnet. No, all my magnets are being used. So anyway, it's like watching paint dry, man. And what you want to do here is make certain that you don't forget that the guitar is about to fall apart. And also, at this point, to keep from risking getting stabbed, well, it didn't, it fell right off. But typically what I would do is I would control this so that if that string didn't poke you and you run the risk of getting an infection from the string, old string. Okay, so the guitar is about to fall apart. You got two little screws here that are obviously vintage that are probably one of the most important things on the table right now. You got to be real careful with those. All right, let's pull this up here. Make sure those screws stay there until we can get them back in place. Okay. Make sure the guitar is not going anywhere. And that will go in a box specifically for Jerome's 73 Les Paul Goldtop. I should have waited. I will. I'll do that before the let me do this. If I don't, I'll forget. Because I have to have a record of the before and after. But nonetheless, in order to keep this video from just being me talking about what I'm thinking about doing, let's just go ahead and do what we're thinking. I was about to start adjusting the pole pieces. It's a possibility these are aftermarket or are not historically original. What you can do at this point, you can put the two, you can leave the two like that right there. Just put a little bit of tension and ask yourself, is it going to come through that pick guard? No, it doesn't look like it. So let's just keep taking the guitar apart, man. While we're still watching those two little screws over there, making certain that they don't disappear. See if it's got any fading. That would be cool. I don't see any. So probably spent a lot of its life with the cover off of it. Okay, now you should be able to just put a little bit of pressure there. If you want, just leave the cover on it, and you can make the determination of how much lead do you have, and just pull it gently until it stops, and then you need to stop. As soon as that stops giving you lead, then you need to stop. A little bit of wildcat fur there. And the question is, what is it you're trying to protect? Well, you're mostly just trying to protect anything here on the back from the actual guitar. Hopefully this will be long enough. Oh man, it's just barely not long enough. Well, let's do a little bit of an inspection first. Okay. Reminds me of like the Gretsch Filtertron treatment. This is basically just temporary while I'm assessing the neck because I don't want to risk scratching up the Goldtop. Damn. I'm getting a fool out of myself here. Beautiful guitar, so cool. Once you start getting them stripped down, you start seeing that beautiful, curvature in the body. It's just really stunning. And let me stay on point. But one thing I do want to do, I'll go ahead and put it on the table. Where's A? These are the Stuart McDonald carving templates for a 1959. Let me pause. Okay, yeah. I have the Stuart McDonald carving templates. This would be the A location right there. That's your B location. Oh, there's your C location. And then here's your D location, which is what makes our 1-1 a Les Paul, is the belly. And then there's the E location. So let's do a brief assessment before we start talking about the pickup cavity again, now that we've got this body, because I might, well, now that I've removed the strings, that's not going to happen. Okay, so this is the A template. It's this location right here. And I'm not going to try to do this because this is not a project I can risk dropping. Not that I can risk dropping any of them, but because this thing is so intact, you're just going to have to trust my judgment, or if you see it, that's awesome. The difference between the 59 and this template right here, this carve, is there's a little bit of a gap right here. So that means that it would have been carved a little bit deeper right here in 59. And this location actually goes right through that potentiometer right there, but I'll do the best I can to, I'll put it on a little bit of an angle on both sides. But yeah, there's a little bit of a void right there, and there's a little bit of void on each end. It only lets you know that it would have been carved out more in the perimeter in that location out there, but it's very, very close to the 59. C location is always a really good. Yep, same thing. So the difference is the belly's there, but there's just more there's more carving around the perimeter, and then yeah, virtually identical to the 59 in the belly. Am I in the right location? Yeah, the only difference is just a little bit more. It's called pinch, like you pinch something. There's a little bit more of a pinch in the 59 right here that allows this to just drop down a little bit more, but the belly is definitely there. And we can't assess the E location because the fretboard is there. But if it's based on the 71, which I'm sure it is, it's probably from the exact same carving system, like the radial arm carving jig, should be identical. So if you're building a guitar, you can get your Stuart McDonald templates, carving templates, and use them as a guide. And as I've clarified in all my past videos, I'm not affiliated with anyone, and I do everything I can to keep YouTube from allowing advertisement on my channel. So if you ever see any advertisement, I had nothing to do with that. So we've already seen the pickup control cavity, and I'm just going to make a real quick assessment here as to how I would remove this neck, and just that, how I would remove this neck is to make certain that I don't create any sort of removal marks in the body. And most likely it's going to have something to do with coming along the lines, excuse me, of like getting, now that I see the tenon here, see the width of the tenon down here, that tenon line. Let me see if that's showing up. I don't know if that's showing up, but there's only so much I can show, and I don't want that pickup just hanging off the side of the guitar. I want it resting under no tension. But whatever's going on with this tenon right here is exactly what's up under it. So this tenon that's in here is that width right there. So when you were getting ready to remove this, let's say the body was completely destroyed and just horrific, irrecoverable, even though it might be a vintage guitar, but the neck was beautiful, then I would definitely recommend drilling to the right side of the tenon, and then keep keep the tenon 100%. I think I've got the tenon here. You know, like keep the vintage tenon intact and very clean. And you can see like their drill removal mark right there where the drill bit got into the tenon a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm splitting hairs here, but if your vintage neck was flawless, but the body was destroyed, then that would determine where you do the drill work in order to remove that neck. But if the neck is shot, or we're trying to preserve the valuation of the body, we're I'm definitely going to be coming over here and drilling into the tenon and going down a certain depth and then steaming this neck off. Okay. I did not remove this neck from the 71 Les Paul, but whomever did remove it, you could tell that was not their first rodeo. They did a really nice job, and they actually drilled, which was a little bit strange. That's something I would not have done. They drilled through the body, just right below that. That would have been fine if you had some sort of cap like a Gretsch. You can remove the little cap and then drill like that. But I probably wouldn't have done that on, well, I wouldn't have done that on Les Paul. I would have come up here and removed frets and drilled straight down. And I'm just showing this bit as a bit. This is too big to go through the frets, but you basically would be using like a 16th inch drill bit through certain fret locations. Two on this side, maybe a couple back here. But you might be surprised, these necks weren't glued in like with perfect full amount of glue and whatnot. They might have just done a little bit of glue on the bottom and maybe a little bit on the sides. And to my knowledge, I don't think they ever did any gluing much on, if any, on the ends. A little bit of glue right there. But, they still sounded really incredible. But nonetheless, that's how you would remove the neck. But with this job right here, if and that I do drill from back here, I will be drilling into the tenon and then steaming it off like that to preserve the body and not leave any builder marks or removal marks. Okay, so check this out. 37 minutes. I'm definitely going to keep this video fairly short. I don't think there's a lot to talk about other than I wanted to do this general inspection on camera, and then let's see if I can trust myself to use a knife here. So that whatever I discovered, you guys got to discover it with me. Well, I could have cut that along the... Typically, what I've seen in the P90s is you have, the springs. You have two springs on either stud. And as we go through the job, I might talk about how I install P90s, but it basically just boils down to you can remove the cover. And drop the cover down into the body like that, and then you mark the locations because you will have the well, I guess I am gonna talk about it. See, these two locations right here, you're wanting to figure out how to transfer them down into the body. And in Ethan's 55 Gibson Les Paul custom replica that I built, complete guitar, I did just that. This P90 back here, I actually pitched it just about 1 degree, 1.5 degrees, but I knew that there was no way in hell I was going to be able to, where's that drill bit? Oh, here it is. There was no way I was going to be able to drill down into the bottom of that pickup cavity and hit that location perfectly without creating some sort of bind. But what I did was I flipped the cover over, dropped it all the way down to the bottom, and then tilted it. And then once it tilted back, then I was able to identify exactly where to do the drill work for the screws. And what I even did was drill a small shelf. So if if the pilot location for the actual screws were, we'll just say, was 1/16 of an inch, but the coil springs might have been 3/16 of an inch, well then I drilled a 3/16 of an inch shelf that allowed the coil springs to like bed down in the little shelves, and then it was awesome because it guaranteed that the spring didn't go off crazy. It guided the screws perfectly down path, so that once it had the coil springs on here because I'm having to compress everything, but as long as those two coil springs were down in the little trough or the shelf, then it guaranteed to me that as long as all I have to do is just push this down until I see those screws come up a little bit, and then I hold it steady Eddie, and then I find the pilot location, and then I start screwing it, and it worked just like that first time. So process of just assessing what was in front of you, it allowed me to actually put the rear P90. I don't know if I tilted that one much, but I know that I tilted this one about 1 degree. So things like that to me are really awesome, and just custom items. I got myself in trouble now. I got those magnets are fighting me. That'll do it. The cool thing about working on vintage guitars is they already have the imprint of where they were originally, so it's kind of idiot proof. Putting something back together, it just falls right in the correct path. And if these were not in the correct path, then it would be your job to, put some nice little dowels down in those locations, and then remount them so that they are, functional. Okay, so should be a really cool project, and I'm going to set it to the side here a little bit and talk a little bit about necks, but not much, because I want to reserve the neck. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to do exactly what I said I was going to do. I need to weigh this thing. So let's do that. Let's weigh the guitar and take a record. Make certain we don't knock it off the table. Because I want to know what my new neck lower weighs in relation to this guitar. It's not heavy at all. It feels really good. Or maybe it's just I'm getting used to the Les Paul being the heavier guitar. Wow. I guess I am getting used to the heavier guitar. All right, make sure it's tiered. £9.342. Let's put the bridge and strings back on there. Uh-oh. 9.678. Make sure it doesn't need to be tiered. 9.678. 9.750. 9.752, creeping up. I don't think this is really going to matter. What are the odds of that? Those two stood up. That reminds me of I'll try. I can't think of the name of the show. All right, 9.756 pounds. Let's get these screws that stood up on their own. That's really strange. Oh, I can't think of the videos, the movie series back in the 70s. I'm not going to sing the theme music, but there was a point where this guy threw a coin in a box, and the coin stood up. And throughout the rest of the day, it made him telepathic. He was able to read people's minds. Twilight Zone. That was a creepy show. So maybe I'll be telepathic tomorrow. Okay, so what time do we have? 47 minutes. That'd be a really good place to just stop the video, and I think I will, because if I start talking about the necks, I'll start getting too technical, but I'll be attempting to remain too general, but I'll need to share information and all that stuff. In other words, there's a lot of information right there. But all I will say is that pretty sure this is the neck that will be going on this guitar right here, only because when I machined out this lower, I machined this out. See, there I go, I'm talking about the neck. It won't take long. I had to machine this one out a little bit taller in the event if I need that material, it's there. It won't be that tall. It'll probably be cut off. I'm hoping it's going to be cut off closer to like 3/16 of an inch. But if I need that 1/16 of an inch, I've got it there to work with. So, and then it just boils down to, and I'll cover it in the rest of this video series, how to build the neck and all that jazz, and even how to do the truss rod and all that stuff. And then we'll very quickly see this one come together because it's kind of cool. All the groundwork has already been done. With this guitar right here. And I had no intention of showing this guitar or trying to showcase the 73, the 71, but all of the work and all the engineering and all the machine work that I did with this body after Chip had sent it to me with the neck removed, well, then all I had to do was just make certain that I just start assessing everything and machining everything so that you get fitments like this right here. I call it like master level furniture building, where there won't be any of this 1/8 inch gap, 1/4 inch gap, or crap like that, or it won't be sloppy. It'll be really beautiful fit work at all 7 sides. And I'm not even going to mention what I mean by 7 sides, but if you guys have been watching my video series, you know what I mean by 7 sides. So with this initial work and engineering done, now I'm just transferring all this engineering over to this body if it's the same. But what I discovered was this guitar on the left here comes down to about right there. And it really only needed to come down to about right there. But if there's some sort of reasoning, then we'll take it back, or either I'll let Jerome know hey man, it's your call. You know, if you want me to put it back historically accurate, then we'll put it back at the historically accurate location. But and if it shows a little bit of change in the finish work, well then that's your call. If that bothers you, then let's take it back deeper. But I'm hoping that the finish on his guitar is really pretty, and we'll be able to go back with the and I've already covered this. I'm just I'm revisiting what we've already talked about. Let's see what that is. Pretty low. It really should be about double that, but I'm just hoping that once this neck removes, is that the finish there is really beautiful and it doesn't show any sort of signs of residue. But if it does show signs of residue, it'll be Jerome's call as to what he doesn't mind seeing or what he does not want to see. Okay. So on that note, I will end the video right there, and I appreciate you guys dropping in. It's a pretty rare opportunity to see two early 70s sister guitars on the table together. It's really cool. So I'll end the video with that dynamic image. And I appreciate you guys dropping in. But I think it'll be a really awesome video series to see this one come together. Is equally awesome as we're getting this one to come together as well, alongside Eric's 69 SG. So I appreciate you guys dropping in. I'm looking at the table. There's a ton of other stuff I could talk about, but I'll save it for the next video. So I'll see you guys then. Thanks.